This is the Cosmic Radio Network with Michael Garrett and me. I'm Rich Rudner. Please join us as we explore what's out there and be part of the most intelligent talk on the planet.
The first time for me was in the summer of 1953 or 1954. A group of us were gathered on my next-door neighbor's porch at sundown. Earlier that day, we'd heard the adults talking about flying saucers and men from outer space. That's the first moment I can remember becoming aware of this so-called phenomenon. We strained our necks and our eyes that evening, looking to be the first to actually spot a flying saucer. I remember clearly being excited and at the same time scared at the thought of actually seeing one. Can you remember the first time you became aware of flying saucers? This is the Cosmic Radio Network. I'm Michael Garrett. UFOs are the topic of tonight's program. Do you remember the first time you became aware? Or does it seem to you that UFOs and the idea of extraterrestrial life forms, aliens, from outer space have always been with you? The phone lines are open, and we want to hear from you. So call us. It's 581-1580, 581-1580.
Well, that's terrific, Michael, and that was an interesting little story, and that's what we want to find out tonight. It occurred to us, flying saucers, UFOs, sightings have been in our lexicon and in our culture, it seems, for quite a while. And it got us to thinking, as Michael has asked, can you remember any time in your life when you could not or did not think or hear about UFOs? So the question is, when was the first time? When did it come into your consciousness? That's what we'd like to find out. So give us a call. The area code's 954. It's 581-1580.
I asked a few people this question over the preceding week here. And so far it seems the vast majority of people cannot remember a time when they were not aware of the term flying saucer or UFO. So we're asking you tonight to think about it for a second. Do you have a first memory, or does it seem you've always thought about UFOs and what they might be? Do you believe in flying saucers? I want to know what you think. I want to talk to you about UFOs tonight. The phone number here, as Rich said, is 581-1580. And I am joined in the studio this evening with my partner, Rich, and station manager, or station engineer, Brian. Hi, Brian.
And Brian is the main man here. Brian keeps WSRF going and on the road every single day, and he's helping us make our first show sound good. And so if anything goes wrong, we'll just blame Brian.
Well, this is the maiden voyage here, and there's so many there's blinking lights and flashing buttons, and I may bang the microphone into my forehead or something. So if you hear a loud crash, that may be it. Or if I push the wrong button, I may knock us totally off the air. So anyway, it's Brian's job to do that. So Rich, you've had time to think about it. Is there a time when you can pick out that you heard about UFOs, or do you feel like they've always been around you?
Well, I have been thinking about it for the last few minutes and probably the last couple of days since we came up with this idea. But it occurred to me that I couldn't personally identify any time that I became first aware of it. In other words, whether it was a picture or somebody said something, I just couldn't think of a time that I wasn't aware of it. And that's what we'd like to find out from some of the people listening in at home. Can they identify it at a time? Were they at Uncle Abe's for Thanksgiving dinner when they were 6 years old, for example, and somebody heard about it, and you heard about it, and you said, "What's a flying saucer?" Or have you always known about it? And we think that's pretty interesting. And
I asked take my son to school, and some of his schoolmates, they're around the age of 14. They can't remember a time at all when the word UFO or a flying saucer or the idea of extraterrestrial life wasn't part of it. And that's part of my point, I think, in terms of how it has influenced our society and how popular culture is inundated, from comic books to motion pictures to music to weekly television shows. It seems to be around us everywhere, and even on the internet. I think it's one of the largest sites that are visited on the internet is UFO information. So if you want to talk to us about UFOs, not just about your first experience, although I find that an interesting idea, if you want to talk at all about UFOs, what do you think they are? Do you believe they're real? Is it just a hoax that hundreds of thousands of people seem to report, and these sightings all around the world, are they just mistaken? Or do you really think there's something to it? I have... In the meantime, let me say this. I had a million things that I wanted to say, and I confused myself. So I've tried to simplify it. We will have a guest a little bit later in the program, and it's Fernando Garcés-Soto. And without getting too heavily into the introduction, I've known Fernando for a while. I know he has sort of a lifelong interest in the subject, and he's also a member of an organization called MUFON, but I won't try to explain MUFON. We'll wait for Fernando in a little while, and if you have any questions for him, he'll be standing by as well. This is Entertainment Radio, 1580, and the phone number is 581.
1580.
There you go.
Makes it easy to remember.
Yeah.
And also, we are going to play a little trivia later on, play a little game with you.
Channeling astrology, ghosts, and angels. This was to sample the public's consciousness. So one of the opening questions was, have you heard or read about UFOs? And the percentage sample was 87% said they had, and 13% said they had not. And I really wonder what rock the other 13% have been living under if they've never ever heard of a UFO. But anyway, that was the first poll. 87% have heard or read about UFOs. The second question was, have you yourself ever seen anything you thought was a UFO? 12% of the people answered that they have. That's 12 out of every 100 people believes they have seen what they would describe as a UFO. 87% said no, and no opinion was 1%. Next question was, in your opinion, are UFOs something real or just people's imagination? 48% said real, 31% said imagination, and 21% had no opinion. The question, do you think that UFOs have ever visited the Earth in some form or not? The answer was yes to 45%, no 39%, no opinion 16%. There's more of it here, and maybe we'll go over a little bit more of it later. But have you ever seen anything you thought was a UFO? I'd really like to know your experiences if you're out there. I'm willing to give you my opinions, and I'm willing to listen to yours. Yeah, Rich?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe right now we'd like to talk for a few minutes and establish a definition for the term UFO. Maybe that obviously unidentified flying object, I think everybody knows that and what it means, but we'll see if we can clear that up a little bit. For more than 20 years, there was a gentleman by the name of J. Allen Hynek, who was the Air Force astronomy consultant to Project Blue Book. Up until Project Blue Book's closed, I think it was December 1769, according to my notes. A few years afterwards, Hynek formed the Center for UFO Studies that now bears his name. It was Hynek that gave the best scientifically accepted definition of a UFO. He said that the UFO is simply the reported perception of an object or light seen in the sky or upon the land, the appearance, trajectory, and general dynamic and luminescence behavior of which do not suggest a logical, conventional explanation, and which is not only misdefined to the original prescience, but remains unidentified after close scrutiny of all available evidence by persons who are technically capable of making a common sense identification if one is possible.
Wow,
that is a mouthful.
That's quite a mouthful.
But believe it or not, it is the widely accepted definition. So I thought I might offer it up right at the beginning here at the program. At any rate, UFOs become pretty common usage and appears in most dictionaries along with ufology, the study of UFOs, and ufologist is one who studies UFOs. UFOs also come to imply a spaceship or vehicle of extraterrestrial manufacture and origin, a flying saucer, if you will. Now, there you go.
Well,
Aren't you glad you asked?
Yeah, very, very technical, but on the other hand, it's always been considered a pseudoscience by the scientists, and yet these were scientists who were deriving this description and this explanation of or the definition of, and I think that's why you get into those terms. I got a little story for you. That this is one that I think in order to know a subject, you got to look into the history of it, and so you've just done a little of touched on Project Blue Book, and gosh, as I said before, there are millions of subjects that we could get into. This kind of falls into the did you know category because you've gone ahead and given this definition of UFOs. And it's commonly considered that the modern era of UFO sightings began around the time of, actually around World War II. Fighter and bomber pilots began to see what they reported as various colored light objects that would approach their airplanes, their aircraft in the skies over Europe, and fly along with them for sometimes extended periods of time. The objects and the sightings were so common that the pilots and crews gave them a name, and they called them Foo Fighters. You may be familiar with that term. Very few people are, but I guess there's even a band now that called themselves the Foo Fighters. And Foo was I guess a mispronunciation of a French term for fire. They were trying, but anyway, in the jargon, that was the nickname they gave them. And you got to remember, these guys were making these reports. These were hardened combat veterans who were used to making serious observations under some very critical situations. So these weren't just anybody reporting this. After World War II, the sightings continued. Private pilots began to report objects they were seeing. Probably the most famous of these, and this is what I'm getting at, occurred in 1947, and this is an important piece. The pilot's name was Kenneth Arnold, and he was a salesman of firefighting equipment, and he used to fly around, it's in the state of Washington, to visit his clients, and this is a matter of public record. He described the air in that day as crystal clear in his report. He was on course when he noticed a bright light flash across his plane. Concerned that another aircraft was flying too close to his, he scanned the skies around him, where he said he observed a chain of 9 peculiar-looking aircraft flying from north to south at what he estimated to be around 9,500 feet in elevation. He said he'd never seen airplanes flying so close to the mountaintops. They flew like geese in a diagonal chain-like line, as though they were joined together somehow. The speed of these aircraft seemed to be very fast for him, but what bothered him most was that these strange craft had no tail sections, and as he was accustomed to seeing on conventional airplanes. He was convinced they were some type of craft, even though they didn't conform with what he knew of aircraft of that time. He later estimated the speed to be in excess of 1,000 miles an hour. After he landed and began telling his story, he was interviewed by a reporter from the Associated Press, where he compared the motion of the craft he saw to be like saucers skipping over the water, and the term flying saucer was born that day and remains with us to this day. I thought that's an interesting story that we ought to bring out right from the beginning on the history of.
Well, that's terrific. It's a good story, and it leads us up very nicely to a bit of a break. We're going to be back with our special guest, member of MUFON. So when we throw it back to Brian, we'll be back at 1580 AM Radio, your entertainment dial. Ready whenever you are.
Okay, here we go.
This is Rich Rudner, back with Michael Garrett here on the Cosmic Radio Network on WSRF 1580 AM Radio. Just want to remind you, our phone numbers here are 954-581-1580. That's 581-1580. We've got a guest here in the studio, and Michael, would you take over and introduce Fernando, please?
Sure. Well, now that we've got all the definitions out of the way and we've got the program started, I do encourage you to call in, but we are going to have a guest with us, and we have a guest with us, and his name is Fernando Garcés-Soto. Fernando, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you, Mr. Runner. How are you guys? They're in Radioland. Now I sound like 1940s, 1947.
I haven't heard Radio Land in quite a while, that's for sure.
Well, you've just given away your age, Fernando, so you know where that is.
Born and raised.
I do appreciate your being here with us, and as I said earlier, that I know that you've had interest in the subject that we're talking about tonight for some time, because I have spoken with you in the past, and we have discussed it a little bit. I also said that you were a member of MUFON, and I didn't clearly define what MUFON was, and I'd like to know if you'd do that for us.
Yeah, MUFON, founded quite a few years back. Basically, what MUFON is all about is to systematically collect and analyze UFO data with the ultimate goal of learning the origin and nature of the UFO phenomena. In other words, we utilize the talents of a lot of professional scientists, all walks of life, all sorts of disciplines.
So MUFON is not like a cult or a...
No, not at all.
Not a bunch of goofballs here?
No,
or
not
maybe
at
some
all.
people would say that anyway.
Yeah, well, some people think we're weird anyway, but that's their problem. MUFON basically is an organization with no ties to any government or any cult or religion sect that investigates what is happening, because obviously something is going on out there, and we are an organization that tries to look at it from the point of view of, that anything can happen. We just, even though we try to go by the rules and regulations of orthodox science, we do also have in mind the fact that some things cannot be measured or studied the way that we've been doing things in the past.
One of the premises that I wanted to do this program on was that, not everything that everyone tells you is true, and I don't have to tell you that. The premise of the program, however, is that I want to believe that if you're willing to offer a sincere experience or a sincere opinion or a sincere report, I'm willing to accept it at that. In other words, I would believe that you believe at least what you're telling me, and I will always offer that back to you. I'll give you my opinion or what I think, and I won't make it, I'm not going to over-sensationalize what I feel or suggest that you believe it. I will tell you as sincerely as I can what my opinion is. And I think that what you're saying is the same thing here, is that there are hundreds of thousands of reports in history, even in the past 50 years, which we just talked about earlier, being the modern era of UFOs. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice if we categorize them all as kooky and weird, and we also do ourselves a disservice if we just dismiss them as being impossible phenomenon. What is the story? Why do all these people do that? Is MUFON a national or an international organization?
He was born in Seguin, Texas, and it is definitely worldwide.
Definitely worldwide. Yeah. And you keep a database of all of these reports that people bring to you. And what about investigative? You mentioned investigation. You actually go into the field and speak with people, and is that what you do?
Absolutely. Talk to witnesses, take samples, take readings. Actually, sometimes since these sightings, come over and over again, we have videotape done. We've had all sorts of things that are really,
Do you have a website?
Yes, we do. As a matter of fact, I don't know what it is, but I can't remember it here. But it
well,
is,
I can tell you. All you have to do is
it's right here.
Is type MUFON, MUFON, when you go into your open location, and it will go to it.
What is it?
So.
But yes, if anybody is really interested in following this phenomena from a very neutral point of view, you should contact Mary Margaret Zimmer, who's the director for Florida, and she is at 305-271-0273. I'll repeat that. MUFON here in Florida is Mary Margaret Zimmer, and her phone number is 305-271-0273.
Okay, well we have a caller here, Dean. How you doing, Dean? You got a question for us, or you got a response for us?
What?
Are you out there, Dean? This is Rich. How are you?
Good, Rich. I wanted to ask the gentleman who's on a question.
Okay, go right ahead.
Go ahead, Dean.
Well, what I wanted to ask is, how about all the satellites that are, circling the Earth, both owned by government companies and private companies? Have they ever had, sightings? I realize that the government satellites would definitely, be hushed if they had any hard data on UFO activity, coming into the atmosphere and whatnot. But what about all the private company satellites that, like the telecommunication satellites owned by the big corporations and stuff? Are they logging data, or are they coming across any sightings?
Well, there are different,
that they're doing?
I'm not this is Michael, and I'll let Fernando speak about it as well. I think what you're talking about are communication satellites, and those aren't necessarily visual contact satellites. What they do is microwave and they wave beams of information. They don't view. Most of what you see, I think what you're referring to, are all those photographs, I'm assuming, that you see sometimes from satellites owned by the government or various governments that can photograph a dime, a Roosevelt dime, on the desert floor and tell you what the date is. Those are highly sensitive government satellites.
What about the weather satellites?
Well, they take a different kind of data. It's a good question, and it is the National Weather Service is probably called the National Weather Service for a reason. I'm not so sure. This information has been considered sensitive information to the public for so very long that you have to question, and that's a question we can ask: does the government know more than they're telling? And if the government knows more than they're telling, then the government's arms are pretty far-reaching as far as space and the air that surrounds this planet. I mean, it's pretty much controlled. Pilots, be they military or civilian pilots, were made to not mention some of these events. Fernando, do you have any information about, why don't we see these things tracked by satellites?
The fact of the matter is that they're tracked all the time, but we are not told, or they just don't care to tell us for reasons that we still don't know why. Now, pilots, whether they're military or civilian, they've been seeing these things for time immemorial, as you said before. But going back to the satellites, like you said, most satellites are used as just a platform to bounce signals off it, and they don't have really any visual capabilities, except for some satellites who don't serve the purpose for us anyway.
Dean, are you still there?
Yeah.
So what do you think, Dean? What do you think they are? Have you ever had an experience?
Well, I was one time interviewed by some park rangers when I was in Colorado. I was up high in the mountains camping, and they found cattle
You hear those? You hear those reports have been around. Cattle mutilations.
Cattle mutilation started a long time ago, and the peculiar thing about this is that no blood is found. Sometimes there is no spillage of blood. The cut is almost incisive, and instead of cutting or dissecting, it separates the tissue. So it looks like it's laser done, and everything is extracted in a manner that is impossible for any animal or even any human being to do without spilling a lot of and making a mess of the place.
Dean, thanks for your phone call. We're gonna let you go.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you. You can call in and be a part of the program. 954-581-1580. Okay, please call and we'd like to talk with you. The cattle mutilation, I guess, that's a program you could do a whole program on. I mean, that's very, very widely reported. Getting back to the UFO issue, how far are we away from a break? We got a few minutes. Okay, great. The opening question tonight was sort of a flashback kind of question, and maybe I didn't present it as well as I should have or could have to try to stimulate people to think about it. But I really think that the reason that I remembered the UFO incident that I was talking about was it was just so exciting to me, and it's been with me ever since. I want to know from you, Fernando, you have a primary experience you remember when you became aware?
I became aware of the thing when I was about 10 years old, not because I saw anything, but because I felt this impulse to really go after this thing. I don't know why.
And where were you at the time?
I was in Cali, Colombia, where I was
Cali,
born and raised.
Colombia.
Yeah.
And this is in what year?
1952.
So since the 1950s, I mean, I think as Americans and, in the United States, we have a tendency to think that, everything from hamburgers to apple pie are hours and hours alone. So you're telling me from the 1950s, there were reports and sightings in Colombia, and it wasn't just an event in the United States?
Absolutely. The UFO phenomenon has been going on for many years, and the United States is not a localized type of event. It's been going on all over the place, all around the world.
Yeah, I saw a story just the other day. They were talking about reporting agencies in Britain, and I believe it was in 1996 they reported 8,000 sightings, and as of the date of the show, there were 5% of those sightings that were still unaccounted for. Didn't know what they were. So this is certainly, obviously, when you're dealing with something like this, if you're coming from another planet, you're going to take a good look at this blue marble. You're going to want to see, you don't care whether it's the U.S. necessarily or Russia or France. You're going to be observing wherever you want to go, and we're pretty small, so there's lots of places to truck around with, and I think that's something Fernando is trying to point out. The
interesting thing is that the more we study the phenomenon, the more we start to doubt that these things are coming from outer space. They may be, we still don't know, but the thing is that they seem to, the way they behave, not necessarily could be from outer space. They could be from within the Earth. It could be within other realms, other dimensions, for the lack of good verbiage, that they're coming from, because the way they behave, is totally against the laws of physics. So yes, I think some of them are extraterrestrial, but I think some of the phenomena comes from within our own environment.
So you're a believer then, I guess. We talked about the word. I know, but we're going to go into believe here in a minute. Go ahead.
Sentiment, and we try to stay away from that. But yes, definitely.
Well, I believe the Earth is round. I can't really prove it to you, but I believe the Earth is. You know what I mean? Yeah, and you're right. I believe that. I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning. I can't, guarantee that. But you think, well, in law, I guess in the area of law, they would call it a preponderance of evidence. I mean, since I've been interested in this, which has been some time, along with other issues that we're going to discuss hopefully on this program in weeks to come. But the UFO issue and flying saucers and the extraterrestrial question has puzzled me. And Rich, one of the things about this program is we're going to try to explore mysteries and things that puzzle us, and we're going to ask questions that we don't have the answer to, and I'm not sure there is any easy answer to. One of the questions that you may have, that I know I have and have been asked, is why don't they just land on the White House lawn? Why are they pussyfooting around? If in fact, look, they've got to be one of two things. They either have to be, well, not maybe that's too simplistic. They're either military craft that we're building that people are seeing, which F-117, etc. They're totally hoaxes. People just make it up. they're weather balloons, they're swamp gas, they're ball lightning. I mean, you can go down the list of the old Project Blue Book and look and see what people describe them as. Or one of the other things is they are craft being flown. Unidentified flying objects, we can't identify them. They are flying, and they're, to most people would describe them as objects. So it's just incredible to me that there's the amount of evidence, the preponderance of evidence that you could say you couldn't believe. And I think that's why the polls show 50% of the people think they're real, and the other 50% either say no or they don't know.
Okay, we're going to have some more questions for Fernando and spend a little more time on this particular area. Right now, we're going to take a little break. This is Entertainment Radio, 1580 AM. We're back here on the Cosmic Radio Network. This is Rich Rudner along with Michael Garrett and our special guest Fernando, who's with MUFON, a member and something you can join. I thought maybe we might talk about that just a little bit. How does one become a member of MUFON?
Very easily. You call Mary Margaret Zimmer at the phone number that I gave you before, and she'll be more than glad to, tell you what to do.
You want to give out that number again?
Yeah. Mary Margaret Zimmer's phone number is 305-271-0273. Mary Margaret Zimmer, and she's the director of MUFON in Southern Florida.
Great. As an organization in MUFON, do you go into the field and investigate? I asked you that before. How do you do that?
I haven't had the chance of doing that lately because of my job. I'm an advertising guy.
Mm-hmm.
We keep pretty busy. But they do go into the field and they interview people. They take samples if there's such a thing. They do borrow the videotapes if they have any, which is now very prevalent, by the way.
Yeah, everybody's got a camcorder.
Absolutely. I mean, just the things that are coming out of Mexico is incredible. Everybody's walking around with a camera in their hands, so therefore the proliferation of these tapes is just amazing all around the world. So yes, we do go out and we try to gather as much data as it is possible, and then we correlate it, and then we analyze it, and finally you give out a possible solution to what it was,
And you discuss it, or you share that data with other MUFON branches, or what?
Yes.
I guess there are groups in different states. Aren't
Absolutely, yeah.
there? And you each have your own secretary, president, or whatever, and they're holding meetings.
Regional director.
Okay, regional director.
Right. Yes.
I like talking to you because you're so tuned into the international side of this, and I know that I keep in touch with as much as I can. The United States is not alone, as I mentioned earlier. UK, Canada.
We're not alone.
We're not alone, indeed. Brazil, Latin America. These things are happening all over, and whether they're figments of people's imagination, or I can't explain exactly what it is. No one. People say, if they're real, why don't we have one that we can cart out and roll down the street and let everybody touch it and feel it, and scientists can look at it. Many of the organizations involved in UFO research assume that we don't have those things to look at, and some individual investigators and authors and etc. think we do, and that gets into another whole subject of the government cover-ups and do we have a piece of a flying saucer? Do we have a whole flying saucer? Do we have aliens? And so many of the reports are around that. I mean, what's your opinion? Do you think that they've crashed here and that we have pieces of them, as some people suggest, or do you think that that's just not the case?
I think there have been crashes. I think some of them perhaps have been shut down. Some have lost their way and have found their way to Nevada desert somewhere. This is all really pure speculation on my part. But I do believe that we've had the occasion of having these things in our hands. And just the fact that lately we've seen, not us, but witnesses have seen this thing being escorted by regular helicopters, either black helicopters or white helicopters. Not just chasing them, but actually escorting this thing.
The reports are fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
it reads like science fiction. I mean, that's one of the problems with it, I think, is that it's so fantastic. The whole idea is so huge that whether it's extraterrestrial, interdimensional, that other intelligences, it just boggles our imagination that they're coming here. The other thing that always bothered me was if they've got the kind of technology, assuming that, I'm going to make some assumptions, and again, I'll always tell you it's assumption, assuming that there's life on other planets, assuming there's intelligent life somewhere in the galaxy, and they are coming here in saucers or any kind of ship, it would seem to me unlikely that they would come all this way only to run it into a ditch. It always amazed me
They're
to
probably
think that
coming for Taco Bell.
but they might actually come here and crash. They could traverse millions and millions of light
I
years.
wouldn't go that far for Taco Bell.
I'm not sure that there is.
You lost a possible sponsor.
I'm not sure that
No loss.
that they're crashed and they're, but again, it's just conjecture on my part.
Of course, we all we can do is conjecture and to set up possible scenarios. But definitely, there's a lot of evidence that these things, maybe we already have a piece of this technology. That's why we're probably doing in Area 51, in the Nevada desert.
We could do a whole show on Area 51
absolutely.
and Bob Lazar and many
Yeah, there you
people
go.
have. What I really like about, I want to get into some grassroots things here, and that's why I'm encouraging people to call. I really want to know. We all see programs and we see television programs and specials, and it always seems like it's the experts and the writers. And these writers are people who interview people who've had experiences, and then they write them down and they give it to us, and then we end up interviewing the interviewer. I'd very much like our listeners, when we have any. Again, this is the maiden voyage, so I'm fully prepared to go alone today, folks. But if you'd like to call in, I want to give you the phone number one more time. It's 954-581-1580. It's the Cosmic Radio Network. I'm Michael Garrett, and I'm here with my partner Rich and my guest Fernando Garcés-Soto, member of MUFON and a person genuinely interested in the UFO phenomenon.
Well, maybe we can spur a little bit with our audience. How about playing a little bit of a sci-fi trivia game? Want to get into something like that?
Fire when ready.
Fire when ready? Okay, reminding you the number is 954-581-1580. We've got a little question here for you. Let me see if I can think about what this is.
Oh, he's pushing buttons. We could be in trouble. If the station goes off the air, just be aware that Rich
Well, we
is
can't have a
pushing
show
buttons.
go by without this little number here. Everybody recognize this? Well, there's a reason why we're playing this. We're not just playing it just for fun. We're playing it because we have a trivia question. Do you remember the old episode in Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, which appeared in the original Twilight Zone series? It was also repeated as one of the episodes that occurred in the Twilight Zone movie. You may recall the episode with John Lithgow in the movie, The Man on the Plane. Okay, with all the things happening out on the aircraft, out on the wing and all that stuff. Well, the same thing was done in its original format and on the show, and what we want to know is, do you remember the name of the actor who played the role originally on the TV series? Our number here is 581-1580. Do you remember who played the role, the same one that John Lithgow played in the movie, who played it originally in the show? Your only hint at the moment, we may have to come up with another hint later, is somebody who is very well known today. So with that in mind, we'll move on.
Did Brian get it? I see Brian writing something down on a piece of paper here.
You got two of them.
Yeah, he wrote something down the page. Well, we got people calling in now. This is getting serious. I don't know. I guess we'll have to take a caller here. Brian is sorting them out in the back. Our phone lines are jammed. Michael, we've done it. We've broken through.
Hold on.
The phone lines are jammed. I'm excited.
I guess
You're going to blow my answer, all right?
I guess the trivia did it.
Hold on.
It must be. It
Hold
must
on.
be. Okay. Well, let me see if Brian's going to help us out here. And
What you do? Just turn that up.
okay.
Last one.
Okay.
We're going to turn
Turn it up a little bit more.
We're going to turn up the
We're
phone
pushing
lines
buttons
here.
again. I'm getting
Some more
scared.
buttons.
What you do that.
Oh, you do that. You do that. And
She's
now,
on the air.
and now I'm
That's
talking.
Linda.
Hi, Linda. How are you?
She was just here.
Okay, I'm glad we finally got a hold of somebody.
Yeah, you sound great.
Oh, thank you very much. Do you have an answer for our trivia
I
question?
think it's William Shatner.
Oh, right out of the box. And Brian thrusts his arms up in the air.
Brian was
Yes,
first,
indeed.
but he
Yes,
had lead
indeed.
with the pad of paper.
Yeah, and find out who that was. Yes, Linda, that was terrific.
Unfortunately, we hadn't planned on any prizes,
Oh,
so I guess that when we
Small
have
detail.
T-shirts or
will be
hats,
t-shirts,
you're
yes.
going to have to call back and we'll.
It's because you guys horned in on our show, so I just had to return the favor.
Oh, unfair advantage. Well, while I've got you on the air,
Yeah.
what do you think? Do you believe in UFOs or not?
Well, I gotta tell you, I'm a big X-Files fan.
Me too.
And I know a guy who used to be in the Air Force, and he says that on one mission he was flying, that on his radar he saw a couple lights, and they all went in a lot of fast directions. And he swears that it was UFOs because he says no aerial, any kind of invented on this planet aircraft can maneuver like that. So,
Well,
ah,
I've heard a lot of those reports, and you're going to hear a lot more as time passes, I'm sure. Well, I really appreciate your calling in and playing the game, even though you were a sure winner, because you know entertainment. I'll see you on the X-Files at 9 o'clock.
yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, thanks, Linda. Well, that was interesting, and we'll see if we can come up with something else. We won't do another trivia question this week, but we will come up with something next week. So put on your thinking caps and.
Have to make it a little harder, I guess.
Well, I didn't want to be that tough coming out of the box.
No, I
here.
say
I
she
figured,
had an inside track. She's an entertainment maven. She likes.
she jumped on that real quick.
Well, thanks for calling.
Yeah, but it jammed our lines. I got to say that. She was the first to get through, and I appreciate her making the call. And want to remind you again, the phone number 581-1580 here on the Cosmic Radio Network, WSRF AM 1580 on your dial, of course. Hopefully you're listening, and you know that. Again, Fernando is with us from MUFON. I don't know if we even told that MUFON is Mutual UFO Network. Did we mention that?
No, we didn't.
Well, we ought to mention that.
And
I just did.
And then we put out a monthly publication called the MUFON report with the latest,
You put in the latest sightings and that, and
we
goings
try to-
on or
we try
meetings.
to-
Yeah.
either that or we publish the investigations of the some of the happenings, just to inform the public and keep ourselves informed and keep track of what's happening.
Great. Well, we'd sure like to know your opinions. I still want to know the answer to the question, do you fit into my Gallup poll? Are you one of the 50% of the people who do believe in UFOs? And if so, why? And if not, why not? If you believe in them, how can you believe in them when we don't have any of them to look at? And we're getting back to that, which is something I mentioned before. If they're out there, why don't they just land on the lawn of the White House and say we're here? And I mean, that's a question that people ask me all the time. And when I bring up the subject, they all want to know, well, hey, why don't they just come and say hello and shake hands?
Being from Colombia, there is a tribe called the Motilones. These guys were pretty fierce. And when the oil companies used to go in there, they used to get killed all the time. So if you were overflying an area that was rather hostile to you, would you land? Absolutely not. You stay away and you look at them, and you perhaps study them, or you interact them, and you try to kind of curb their behavior, or do something like that. Or simply they cannot. They probably don't allow themselves to interact with ourselves, or they are doing it, and we're just not aware of it, which is something that we're looking into for the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
We are probably being manipulated, and we just have no clue.
Cosmic Radio Network.
It's incredible. I know that there's many stories out of abductions. John Mack's written a book. He's a Harvard psychiatrist. There were people who were having what they claimed was abduction experiences in UFOs. Wait, do we have a phone call?
Well, you're shocked that we have a phone call? Yes, it's supposed to be, Michael, we need to be a little more positive here.
Oh, I'm positive.
Okay.
The board is jammed, Michael.
All
What's wrong
right.
with you?
All right.
Yeah, we have Jim calling us from Tamarack. Let's see if I can do this without punching Jim off here. I see him down on there. Let's see if this works. Jim, do I have you?
Yes, you do.
Oh, I did it right. I'm shocked. Oh, Jim, it's good to hear from you. Where are you from?
From Tamarack.
Oh, good, good. Do you have a question for us, Jim?
I wanted to comment on the question he asked about the Gallup poll.
Okay.
Whether or not people believe in the 50% of people that believe in whether or not they're UFOs. And I'm one of the people who actually believe that we'd be too arrogant to believe that we're the only living beings, vast, huge universe and everything. And I just there's no way we'd be all by ourselves.
Did you see the movie Contact, Jim?
Yes, I did.
I loved and again, Carl Sagan was not the biggest proponent of ETs visiting this planet, although he did, I think, made a point clear through SETI and his writings that he believed that there was intelligence out there. I like the statement that if there's not, it's a pretty big waste of space.
Yes.
I think really that says a lot. Did you like Contact?
Yes, I did. Great movie.
I think that all of these things that have gone into the popular consciousness, isn't it incredible how we think of these things? Do you remember ever not being aware of UFOs?
Better yet, have you ever seen anything or interacted with anything that you couldn't explain?
Not really.
Or do you know anybody who has? Not really. Okay, fine.
Really, no, not anything
Okay.
that I don't remember ever seeing anything that I couldn't explain.
But
Through what I know. I mean, I've seen stuff fall from the sky, but I've been able to explain that away as falling debris, like asteroids or meteor
Right.
showers or whatever. I
Right,
haven't seen
space
anything,
junk.
that took off like a bolt of lightning and just was out of there.
Yeah. So yours is more of a philosophical statement
I would think so.
as opposed to an experiential statement. But do you follow any of the UFO news?
Oh yeah, I believe. I mean, I'm not. I wouldn't be the. I'd be definitely willing to if I saw something that I couldn't explain. I would probably believe that it was a UFO or something. I wouldn't be easy to dismiss it as a weather balloon.
What would you do about it? That's something else that I'm anxious to talk to people about too.
What I do about it?
I think that most people don't do anything about it. I think there's a lot more reports
They're
than are
afraid.
actually there.
I mean, what
What would you do? Would you be afraid of ridicule?
No, I'd say, hey, I saw something, man. I don't know what the heck it was, but I'd say something. Don't know who I'd say something to my friends. I don't think they'd think I'm too crazy if they know me. I don't think I'd go running to the papers unless, other people corroborated my story.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's pretty common. You say, well, how if these things are flying around or they're here, how come we don't see them? My God, it's been sometimes thousands of people for 2, 3, 4 hours looking at these things up in the air, maneuvering, playing around with the airplanes, and we have videos and all that. Mexico City is a place. In point. Right now it's incredibly hot down there, and I don't know what's going on. I mean,
You mean hot as in a lot of
Hot,
sightings, not as
yeah,
in
exactly.
mucho calor, right?
Yeah, mucho
Yeah.
calor is correct.
Yeah.
But that's what's going on. So.
I've seen some of the footage too. Do you watch sightings at all?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's what is that Monday through Thursday at 8 p.m. on the Sci-Fi Channel.
I have a question for you, guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
There for a while, back in the early 90s, there was a lot of talk about a lot of sightings up in the Panhandle area of Florida.
Gulf.
Whatever happened?
It's right now, as a matter of fact, before the program, before we went on the air, Gulf Breeze is the name of the place. There's a huge naval installation there, by the way. But these things happen to be there just about every night. I mean, it's incredible what's happening over there. And the interesting thing is we're about to have a conference over there. And as if they knew what was going on, they're showing up all over the place. And, it's still very hot. Gulf Breeze seems to be what we call a portal, ultra-dimensional portal or something that we have no idea what it is, but some places on Earth, on every country has these points of interest for these things, or these things happen all the time. And Gulf Breeze is definitely one of them, and it's very hot right now.
Any other questions, Jim?
No, that's it. I want to tell you guys are having a great show.
Thanks.
Well, we're getting a little bit of a rocky start, but I think once we get going here, we might be a little more
A little
comfortable.
rocky too,
Oh yeah, you'll be all right.
I appreciate it, and I thank you for calling. Thanks,
No problem.
Okay, man. Thanks a lot. If you want to call and ask a question, it's 954-581-1580. This is the Cosmic Radio Network, and I'm Michael Garrett. I want to talk to you about UFOs and a variety of subjects in the weeks to come. So,
Oh, there's my first mistake. He said goodbye, but we didn't.
say goodbye, and I say hello.
Yeah. Yours may vary.
Okay, getting back to, I guess, a couple of final moments here. It looks like the hour is...
How much time we have left here, Brian?
About 5 minutes.
Oh, we've got 5 minutes left?
We got
Holy
5
smokes.
minutes. Anything else you'd like to say, Fernando, off the top of your head, or anything you'd like to say to anybody out there who might be listening concerning the validity of UFOs and flying saucers?
No, I mean, the thing is, don't feel, what's the word I'm looking for? Don't feel threatened or don't feel that somebody's going to make fun of you. Just if you have anything to report, call MUFON. There's a hotline, which I don't have right now, but that's great. But you can call MUFON at 305-271-0273. That's just in case you feel, interact with anything that you do not understand.
All right, hold on. I think we've got another
we
call.
We do indeed have a call. Let me see if we can pick this up. Hang on. Here comes the magic button. Oh, are you with us? Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Oh, there we are.
Hi there.
We got somebody out there.
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Hello.
What's your name?
What is your name?
Tell him to turn his radio down because it's just under the radio.
Turn your radio down a little bit and you'll be able to hear us better.
My name's Paris.
Hey, Paris, how are you?
Just fine.
What's your question?
Just wondering if you guys have any idea who might be the next Carl Sagan out there to sort of excite another generation of people to get actively involved with these things, like the Planetary Society and the search for extraterrestrial life, those kinds of things. Active involvement.
Well, that's a good question.
There's a whole host of individuals who are trying to do something about it. What bothers me is that we're spending all these millions of dollars with these huge ears in the Arizona and California desert to catch radio waves from millions of light years away, when we may just be having all this action here, down here, I mean, we could channel this money much better. Now, in as much as who in particular is going to take the reins of this investigation like Sagan did, I have no idea. But there's a lot of people out there who's very capable.
A lot of people thought that Carl Sagan was actually an instrument of disinformation.
Exactly.
There are those
Absolutely.
who really
Yes.
said that, and that's another problem that you run into is that the reports are so fantastic that it's easy to slip erroneous information in that's equally fantastic, then disprove that, and then disprove the whole
The whole
sum
thing loses.
of the thing. I always like to say that some of the greatest lies are hidden among the greatest truths. If I tell you 99 things that you and I can agree are true, and I slip in one,
That does it for the
you
other.
might buy that too.
Absolutely.
So,
Vice versa, too, though.
yeah,
Yes,
that's
exactly.
true too. That's true too. But if we have a tendency to believe the government, and that's another whole program,
Well,
and talking about what's
fortunately,
been released and what's not.
Fortunately, we're getting wiser as we go along since Watergate in Vietnam.
Okay, well, folks, I really appreciate it. This is Michael Garrett. I really appreciate your being here. Paris, we got to say
Thank you,
goodbye. And
Paris.
thanks for calling. Call
Thank
us
you.
back. Join us again on the program. Fernando, thank you for being
Thank you, sir.
here. This is Michael Garrett. I'll turn it over to Rich Rudner. I hope you'll be with us again next week. I hope you call us, and I hope you give me your opinions.
Oh, we thank you for that. We thank you for joining us in their calls. I'm going to just go through a couple of small things here. We want to remind you our phone number here is 581-1580. You can write it down. So we'll be back here again next week at 6 p.m. I want to talk about a couple other things very quickly. We have a lot of friends out there that want to be part of our show, and we'd like you to be part of the show as well. So keep that number at hand. Think of some questions you'd like to ask us. Some people are shy to talk about this subject, but I'll tell you something very interesting. When we were putting this program together, and we went and talked to people, and we told them we're doing a radio show. And, if we went out there and said we were just doing we're going to be doing an information talk show because we're kind of sort of funny guys or this and that, people say, well, that's nice, good luck. But whenever we say the words UFO, flying saucers, paranormal, government cover-ups, and that sort of thing, all those subjects that we're going to get into over the weeks that follow, it stops people, and they get in a conversation with you immediately. And so as you've been listening to us today, feel free. That's what this is. This is designed to be an open forum where you can get your word out. Tell us about anything that you've seen, things that you may have seen, may not have seen, wonder what it was, and we'll try to answer as best questions as best we possibly can. Remind you again about MUFON. You can find them on the internet. Just dial up on the net, MUFON, M-U-F-O-N, and they will be there for you. So that's what we wanted to kind of get across here today as we ventured forth here into the world of radio waves. I noticed the wind was blowing tonight and all that good stuff, and that was really, really nice. So we're going to wrap it up here now, and just want to say that we're really glad that you joined us, and hope that you join us again next week. This has been a broadcast of the Cosmic Radio Network. We now return control of your radio receiver to your normally scheduled programming. The opinions and ideas expressed in this program by the host, guests, and callers are their own, and in no way reflect those of this radio station, the program sponsors, any government employees, or any government agency, foreign or domestic, or any of their employees. We got everybody covered. Until next Sunday at 6 p.m., on behalf of Michael Garrett, this is Rich Rudner saying to you, remember, the truth, my friends, may be right here.